There is a letter in the Los Angeles Police Department archive that was never opened by the person it was addressed to. It arrived on September 16, 1932. It was from RKO Pictures. It offered Peg Entwistle the lead role in a new production. The character she was being offered was a woman who attempts suicide and survives. Peg Entwistle had jumped from the Hollywood sign 2 days earlier. She was 24 years old. The letter arrived after she was already gone. The role she had been waiting for, the one that would have changed everything, arrived 2 days too late. This is the story the history books tell about Peg Entwistle. But the story the history books tell is only the last 2 days. The rest of her life deserves to be told. Because the rest of her life is the story of what Hollywood actually was beneath the billboards and the searchlights and the fan magazines. And what it did to the people who came to it, believing the myths. Millicent Lillian Entwistle was born on February 5, 1908, in Port Talbot, Wales. Her father, Robert, was a stage actor. Her mother died when she was very young. Robert Entwistle moved his children to London, then to New York, working steadily in theater while raising Peg and her 2 brothers. When Peg was 14, her father was killed in a traffic accident in New York. She and her brothers were taken in by their uncle Harold Entwistle, who lived in New York and worked as an engineer. She was 14 years old, in a foreign country, without parents, dependent on the kindness of a man she barely knew. She responded to this the way she responded to everything. She threw herself into theater. By the time Peg Entwistle was 18, she was performing on Broadway. Not in small parts, in significant roles opposite recognized names. She worked with Billy Burke. She appeared in productions that critics reviewed seriously. She was considered, by people whose opinions about theater mattered, to be genuinely talented. Not the manufactured kind of talented that Hollywood produced through acting coaches and camera tests. The kind that comes from understanding language and character and the relationship between a performer and an audience. By 1930, she had appeared in 13 Broadway productions. She was 22 years old. She was, by any reasonable measure, a success. Hollywood was not Broadway. This is something that the actors who made the journey in the 1930s understood only after they arrived. Broadway valued craft. Hollywood valued image. Broadway rewarded range. Hollywood rewarded type. A Broadway actress with genuine range who did not fit cleanly into the categories that the studio system used to organize its talent was a Broadway actress who would struggle in Hollywood. Peg Entwistle did not fit cleanly into any category. She was not the blonde ingenue. She was not the dark-haired temptress. She was not the comedic character actress. She was a serious theatrical performer in a system that had limited use for serious theatrical performance. She arrived in Hollywood in 1932. She was 24 years old. She had been working professionally for 6 years. She had 13 Broadway productions to her name. None of that mattered. RKO Pictures gave her 1 film, 13 Women, released in 1932. It was a horror thriller about a woman who uses her knowledge of astrology to drive a group of her former sorority sisters to suicide and madness. Peg Entwistle played one of the women being driven mad. Her role was small. Her performance was noticed by nobody in any position to notice performances. The film was released. It was not successful. RKO did not offer her another contract. She began the process of waiting. The waiting was the experience that destroyed more people than Hollywood's cruelty did. The cruelty was at least active. The waiting was passive. It required you to maintain your hope and your presentation and your belief in your own talent in a city that was not paying attention to you. It required you to keep attending the right parties and meeting the right people and being available for the auditions that might come and often did not. It required money. The money from 13 Broadway productions did not last long in Los Angeles in 1932. She was living with her uncle Harold, who had followed her to California. She was 24 years old and had been a recognized Broadway actress and was now waiting by a telephone in her uncle's house in Beechwood Canyon. The telephone did not ring. On the night of September 16, 1932, Peg Entwistle left her uncle's house and walked up into the Hollywood Hills. She left her coat and her purse at the base of the sign. She climbed the maintenance ladder to the top of the letter H. The Hollywood sign in 1932 was not the landmark it would later become. It had been erected in 1923 to advertise a real estate development called Hollywoodland. It was 50 feet tall. She jumped from the H. She was found 2 days later by a woman hiking in the hills below the sign. The woman found a coat, a purse, and a note. The note said, "I am afraid I am a coward. I am sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, it would have saved a lot of pain." The note was signed with her initials. P.E. The letter from RKO arrived the following day. It had been sent before anyone at the studio knew what had happened. It offered her the lead in a new production. The character she would have played was a woman who attempts suicide and survives. The coincidence has been discussed in every account of Peg Entwistle's story since 1932. It is the kind of coincidence that fiction would not dare to use because it would seem too constructed. Life used it without apology. The cruel irony at the end of Peg Entwistle's story is not the letter. Though the letter is cruel enough. The cruel irony is this. She came to Hollywood with more genuine talent than the system required. She was a serious theatrical actress in a city that had manufactured its idea of what an actress was supposed to be and had no template into which she fit. The system was not designed for her. It was not designed for the thing she actually was. It was designed for the thing it could sell. And it could not sell Peg Entwistle. Not because she was not talented. Because she was talented in the wrong way. In the way that required attention and patience and the willingness to look past a face to what a performer could actually do. The studio system did not have attention or patience. It had contracts and camera tests and publicity departments. None of them were designed to find what Peg Entwistle had. She waited 6 months. She was 24 years old. She had been working since she was 16. She had 13 Broadway productions behind her. She had 1 film. She had a letter in a mailbox she would never open. Peg Entwistle is the most famous person in the history of the Hollywood sign. Not because of her work, because of how she died. She is a footnote in every history of old Hollywood. She is referenced in documentaries about the sign. She is the answer to a trivia question. She is not remembered for the 13 Broadway productions. She is not remembered for what her colleagues said about her work. She is not remembered for the craft she spent 8 years building. She is remembered for the H. The system that could not use her talent made her famous for her death. The system did not notice the irony. The system never noticed anything that was not useful to it. There is a letter in the Los Angeles Police Department archive. It has been there since September 1932. It is from RKO Pictures. It is addressed to Peg Entwistle at her uncle's house in Beechwood Canyon. It offers her the lead role in a new production. It arrived 2 days after she was gone. Nobody knows if she would have taken it. Nobody knows if it would have changed anything. Nobody knows what Peg Entwistle would have become if the system had been built to find what she actually had instead of what it needed to fill a category. The letter has been sitting in that archive for 90 years. Still addressed to her. Still unopened. Did you know Peg Entwistle's story before today? Tell me in the comments what you think about a system that only made her famous for how she left.